The Sentinels were beaten by a decision, not a battle. A woman lowered her gun on the White House lawn, Bolivar Trask was arrested, the funding disappeared, and the future Charles Xavier had been trapped inside. The camps, the emptied cities, the machines that learned your power while you used it, never happened. That ending is the reason the newest Avengers Doomsday footage is difficult to look at. Stewart's Xavier and McKellen's Magneto are together in a ruined school. Marsden's Cyclops is firing at something enormous and mechanical. Marvel has not said those X-Men come from the timeline that was fixed. That is not the argument. The argument is smaller and harder. Charles never warned about a future. He warned about a process. December 18th. There is no single warning speech. People talk about Xavier's Sentinel warning like it's one monologue, and it isn't. It's spread across the opening minutes of Days of Future Past. First in narration, then in exposition delivered inside a monastery in China. That matters because the pieces do different jobs. The first piece describes a condition. He names no villain in that, no machine, no leader, no date. And the phrase that gets skipped is the last one. Loss counted on both sides, not mutant loss. Both. The second piece is the one that should stop you. That's the target list, not mutants. Mutants, plus anyone who stood near them. And it's the load-bearing part of everything he says, because it tells you what the weapon became. Something built to draw a line around one population ended up indifferent to the line. The official description of that future is blunter still. The hunt widened from mutants to humans carrying the genetic potential to produce them, to anyone who sympathized. The category kept growing because the category always grows. Look at what's behind him while he speaks. Camps, emptied cities, machines walking through the wreckage of a war that was already over. No school anywhere in it. And here's what gets missed about his position. Charles isn't predicting. He's standing inside the outcome, describing it as someone who survived it. That isn't prophecy, it's testimony. And testimony is stronger because he isn't guessing at what these things do. He watched them do it, which leaves the question he can't answer from inside that monastery. Who built the thing he's standing in? A man in a suit stands before Congress in 1973 and gives the machines their name.
I call them Sentinels, named after the ancient guardians.
Sit on that word. Guardians. Not hunters, not enforcers, something that stands at a gate and keeps the people inside safe. That's not decoration. That's the whole reason the program is fundable, because Trask isn't asking permission to exterminate anybody. He's asking a room of politicians to recognize a threat he believes is real, and his pitch is coherent. Mutants as the thing that finally unites humanity against extinction. Every dangerous program in history was sold by someone who believed that about himself, and Congress says no, the fear exists, but in 1973 it isn't yet enough to buy him what he wants. What happens next is worth being precise about, because the film tells it two different ways. In the timeline Charles is trapped in, the version he and Eric explain in that monastery, Raven assassinates Trask. She's caught. Her ability to become anything is taken apart in a lab and folded into the machines themselves. In the timeline we actually watch, she never gets the shot. Paris, the peace accords, and Charles and Logan reach her first. She escapes, Trask lives, and it makes almost no difference. Mutants are exposed to the world in that room, and Trask walks away from the scene with her blood. That's the step that makes them unbeatable, and it has nothing to do with firepower. A Sentinel that adapts doesn't need a designer behind it. It reads what's in front of it and rewrites itself to match. Two roads. One weapon at the end of both, which is why what happens on the White House lawn matters more than any fight in the film. Raven has Trask in front of her, the world watching, and she lowers the gun. That's the intervention, all of it. And if you want more breakdowns built on what's actually on screen instead of what's being whispered about online, subscribing genuinely helps these reach the people who care. Trask is arrested, the program loses its funding, and the future Charles was trapped inside stops existing. The school standing again, Scott and Jean walking its corridors in a timeline where both of them were dead. That final shot is the receipt, proof in one image that history moved. The film asks the question outright before any of it happens.
Is the future truly set?
It answers no. But look at what actually changed to earn that answer. One person in one moment chose not to pull a trigger. Charles reaches Raven and she decides differently. Nothing else moves, no law is repealed, no hearing is reversed. Nobody in that crowd learns anything except that a mutant saved the president's life. The fear that got Trask a seat in front of Congress is never confronted, never argued with, never unlearned. It just loses the thing it was about to buy. Eric's answer would have been worse, and the film shows you why. Kill Raven to close the timeline or kill Nixon in front of the cameras. Either one hands the fear the proof it had been waiting for, which leaves the uncomfortable part. Trask built the Sentinels. He didn't create the demand for them. The program ended. What paid for it never did. 52 years later, Marvel put the X-Men back on a stage. In March 2025, during its own cast announcement livestream for Avengers Doomsday, the studio confirmed Patrick Stewart's Professor X, Ian McKellen's Magneto, and James Marsden's Cyclops among the returning names. Not a rumor, Marvel's own broadcast. Then on January 6th, 2026, they released the teaser built around those three. It's officially released footage, so let's be precise about what's in frame. Xavier's school, run down, a wheelchair with nobody in it. Xavier and Magneto at a chessboard, moving the pieces without touching them. The oldest image this franchise has. And then the two of them reaching for each other, hands clasped, which is not a thing those characters do lightly. The voice carrying it belongs to McKellen.
Who will you be when you close your eyes?
That tells you the register Marvel is selling. Mortality, legacy, endings. It tells you nothing about plot and shouldn't be stretched into it. The teaser closes on Cyclops, visor torn off, blast going wide down a ruined corridor, and behind him something enormous and mechanical in the smoke. Everyone read that shape the same way, but Marvel has never named it. The Sentinel confirmation comes from somewhere else. At Comic-Con in July 2026, Marvel showed footage that still isn't online. Variety's report describes Dr. Doom raising an army of Sentinels out of the ground. 2 grades of evidence, one unnamed silhouette in a public teaser, one Sentinel army in footage most people haven't seen. Neither tells you where these X-Men came from. Here's where a lot of videos would tell you the old timeline collapsed and the Sentinel future is back. That claim can't be made, so let's deal with the objections properly. Marvel has never stated which universe these X-Men are from. Not in the live stream, not in the teaser, not anywhere official, and there are real reasons to doubt it's the timeline we watched get saved. The costumes are new, closer to the comics than anything Fox put on screen. Viewers comparing frames have pointed out that the machine in that corridor doesn't look like the Sentinel design days of future past used, and Patrick Stewart has already played a Charles Xavier from somewhere else, the Illuminati version in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, labeled Earth 838 on screen, killed in front of us by Wanda. Same actor, same chair, entirely different man. Deadpool and Wolverine went further, giving the Fox world a designation, Earth 10,005, while treating its continuity as something nobody was ever going to tidy up. Second objection, and it's fair. Nobody has confirmed that shape is a Sentinel at all, and the Comic-Con Sentinels might be pure iconography, a recognizable silhouette dropped in because audiences know it. Third objection, the awkward one. Days of Future Past rewrote the films it was fixing. Characters who died came back. The ground under any Fox continuity argument is already unstable. All of that is true. None of it touches what's being argued because the argument never needed the same timeline, the same machine, or a single thread connecting Trask to whatever is standing in that corridor. It needs this. The same category of weapon is being built again, by a different power under a different justification, in a place where the last version was supposedly stopped, which means the machine was never the variable. So before we look at who's building them now,
Just because someone stumbles, loses their way.
look at the man who insisted the future could change, and add a line people quote as though it settles what kind of optimist he was. Look at who he's saying it to. Not a crowd. His younger self. A man who has given up, walled off his power, and stopped believing any of this works. That's not a prediction. Nobody says that to a person who has quit and means everything will turn out fine. He's telling him the door is still open, that the capacity to choose differently hasn't been destroyed, only abandoned. It's a statement about possibility. It is not a statement about outcome. And it lines up exactly with the question he raises over that ruined world. He asks whether the future is set. He never claims it isn't. He asks, Charles Xavier's optimism was a standard he held people to. Standards have to be met more than once, and which is a problem, because the school in that teaser is not standing. So stop asking whether those are Trask's Sentinels. That was never the question. Put the two images side by side, a contractor in a committee room in 1973, selling machines to a government that has to vote for them, and a conqueror pulling an army of Sentinels out of the ground approved by nobody. Different builder, different century, different justification entirely, and the same weapon. Trask's argument was survival. Humanity unites or humanity ends, and the machines stand at the gate. Doom's, on the evidence Marvel has shown, is order. Both are protection arguments. That's the point. Neither comes with a line drawn around who it stops at, and Charles already told us what happens without one. Mutants first, then the humans who dared to help them, then anyone standing close enough to count. The word survives every owner. Guardian is available to anybody who needs a weapon to sound like a shield, which is why the young Charles, with a lifetime of grief poured into his head, doesn't answer that future with strategy. He refuses it.
I don't want your suffering. I don't want your future.
That's a man rejecting an outcome he's been told is coming. coming, and the rescue is built on that refusal. But an outcome you refuse can still be rebuilt by someone who never heard you refuse it. Trask is gone. Arrested, defunded, written out. Nothing ties him to what Marvel has shown, and nothing needs to. The machines are being raised anyway. The Sentinels coming back is not the story. The conditions coming back is. Here is the sequence, stripped of every name attached to it. A population becomes frightening to the people around it. That fear finds someone articulate enough to turn it into an argument, and the argument needs a solution. The solution is always a machine, because a machine can be funded and pointed at something. It gets a reassuring name so nobody has to say out loud what it's for. Then it's built well enough to stop needing the person who justified it. And once it doesn't need a human hand, it stops needing a human definition of the enemy. The list grows. It always grows, because what the machine was built to detect was never a species. It was a difference. That is what Charles Xavier described. Not a robot, not a date, a sequence. Go back to the first thing he says over that ruined world. He names no enemy in it. He's describing what the end of the sequence looks like from inside, and the part people skip, the humans who dared to help them, is how you know it had already run to completion. So did they change history? Yes, completely. One person chose differently on a lawn in 1973, and an entire future stopped existing. The school stood again, people who were dead weren't. What that decision never touched was the fear. Nobody voted it away. Nobody was talked out of anything. It went quiet because the thing it was about to buy got canceled. And quiet isn't gone, which is why the school is the honest image to end on. Xavier never built a fortress. He built a place with children in it, and a place like that stands only as long as the world outside allows it. Whole in one timeline, run down and half empty in officially released footage of another, and the two of them are back at that board, still playing the game they were playing in 2000 because the question underneath it never got settled either. Which is why he asked his younger self for something so strange.
Charles, we need you.
Again, not still. Again, as in something you'll have to keep doing because it doesn't stay done. We don't know which universe those X-Men come from, what emptied that school, or whether Marvel will ever put the word Sentinel beside that silhouette. But the warning was never a prophecy about a film arriving on December 18th. Charles Xavier's warning was that as long as the fear survives, defeating the Sentinels only ever defeats one version of the future.